Good morning. I'm Jennifer Diallo. I'm from the Office of Degree Authorization for the state of Oregon, and I'm joined here by Ben Cannon, the Governor's Education Policy Advisor. It is our honor and privilege to participate in the visit of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and to be the guests of Maitripa College, one of the fine examples of schools under authorization in Oregon. A degree is an academic credential that must be authorized by a government in order to be legal, in order to hold the value of a public credential. And the purpose of degree authorization is to ensure, around the world, in every country, is to ensure that certain standards of quality are met and that the holder of the degree has value for the holder of that degree and for those who the person represents themselves as a degree holder. And these standards throughout the history of higher education have been provided by governments around the world and allow one to cross state lines, to cross country lines by presenting a degree as this public credential. In the United States, we also have a system of accreditation which ensures the value and the quality of those degrees, and regional accreditation is the level that is recognized around the world as holding the highest value for a degree. In Oregon, we have a unique situation in that because we provide the opportunity for colleges to begin to offer degrees before they have regional accreditation by providing evaluation services. We have fine examples like MyTripa that are able to flourish and grow into regionally accredited institutions. And we are very proud to have a school of this high quality here. Thank you for the honor of being here today and participating with you in the commencement of your students and the welcome of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I'm very grateful.
So I think now we begin with the presentations. It's going to be slightly different than what you find in your program. I think Dr. Alexander will go first, and then I will go next, and we'll give His Holiness the last word. So Dr. Alexander.
Thank you very much. It is a true honor to be here today. 4.5 years ago, I thought I knew how the brain, the mind, consciousness all work. I'd spent more than 20 years in neurosurgery, and although I really didn't know how to begin describing how consciousness might emerge from the physical brain, I thought someday we would uncover all that through our scientific methods of studying the brain. And then one morning I was thrust deep into coma for 7 days, and in fact had a profound experience in that coma when I should have had no experience whatsoever based on our current understanding of conventional neuroscience in the brain, in neocortex, the part that makes us human, because I had a very severe and rare bacterial meningitis and had a profound and wonderful journey in which I'd forgotten all of my earthly memories from before coma and went into multiple realms that I describe in my book, Proof of Heaven. And when I came back, I was blessed with, for one thing, realizing that I had had such a profound journey and in the setting where all my memories from my life were still erased. And those memories came back over about 6 weeks. During that time, I was very busy writing down and recording my journey in coma. And I go into detail about the logic of it all in my book. But working with many colleagues in neuroscience, trying to explain my journey, it became very clear that in fact, when the mind, consciousness, is freed from the limitations of the physical brain and the human mind on this side of the veil, our consciousness is much richer, our awareness much grander. And that was shown to me very clearly in my journey. And try as I did to explain it as a phenomenon based in the brain, as a sick phenomenon of the dying brain, what I came to realize is no, it's a very natural aspect of our true existence. And in fact, I would say that part of my lessons from this journey, which have to do with knowing that our consciousness, soul, or spirit is enriched when it is freed from the physical brain, is that we are eternal souls. And the only way to make sense of it in trying to understand everything that I know about science, brain, mind, consciousness, and the nature of reality, it was also clear that our souls come back again and again. That in fact, reincarnation was the only way to make sense of so many aspects of my journey, and also of seeing that all-powerful, all-loving source at the core, and reconciling that infinite power and infinite love with some of the tragedies and hardships and hurdles in the physical realm. I came to see all of those hardships as gifts, as beautiful opportunities for growth of our soul, and to see that in fact these many incarnations, our souls do grow tremendously towards that oneness. And in fact, I came to see as a scientist that the hard problem of consciousness, which is probably the most unknowable question in all of human thinking, and that is that no one on earth can give the first sentence about how the physical brain might give rise to consciousness. That in fact, that kind of question, as well as all the phenomena of what are called non-local consciousness, such as telepathy and near-death experiences, reincarnation memories, out-of-body phenomena, remote viewing, all of those phenomena actually come to a much cleaner answer, as well as the enigma of quantum mechanics when we start to understand that our pure materialist thinking, I should say mine, before coma, was faulty, that it was inadequate, that it had nothing whatsoever to offer up about the nature of consciousness. And so in fact, my journey was very much an awakening that I think probably everyone in this room has already awakened to, but I have to confess, I needed a thumping. I needed something to get my attention, but I had everything I needed before. I never needed to have a near-death experience. Just by being conscious, everything was there that I needed. Deep meditation, centering prayer, these are all means of getting to these deeper truths. Sometimes what I call the gift of desperation, and that is a beautiful gift indeed. And I now see that this is all about our coming to a higher wisdom that really follows a much longer pathway about knowing the true nature of our existence. And I am so grateful to the wonderful efforts of so many, like His Holiness, who have led the way through so many years to help bring science, spirituality, human knowing, and getting to the deeper aspects of our existence with peace, compassion, love, forgiveness, and that it is all such a gift to the world. Thank you for this opportunity.
So I've been given the task of speaking a little bit about reincarnation from an academic point of view, and my field is as a student of religion. So I'm going to talk about the doctrine of rebirth and its manifestation, mostly in India, but I should begin by saying that the notion of rebirth is found in many different cultures. So from the Celtic religion to certain sects of Islam to even Kabbalistic Judaism, all of these traditions have some notion of rebirth or reincarnation. But arguably the most sophisticated development in the theory of rebirth or reincarnation is found in India. So I thought I would maybe really deal with this just in 2 points. One is a little bit about the history, and one is the other point being about philosophy. Now, if we think about the history of rebirth, of course, from the viewpoint of traditional Indian religions, rebirth and the doctrine of rebirth is a kind of trans-historical thing, meaning that according to Indian beliefs, we have been being reborn since beginningless time, and throughout this whole time there have been enlightened beings who have come to the earth to teach us about the doctrines of karma, of rebirth, and the methods to lessen suffering. So from the tradition's point of view, we can say that rebirth is a kind of trans-historical phenomenon. But academic historians of religion look at the history of the doctrine of rebirth in a slightly different way. And if we look at India, we find, for example, that rebirth hasn't always, even though it's very much a part of the Indian worldview today, sometimes I think that it's almost imbibed with the mother's milk, so that children, and this is the same is true in Tibet, I think, come to the belief in rebirth almost innately. But this wasn't always the case. So for example, if we look at the most ancient scriptures of India called the Vedas, or in Tibetan they're called Rikche, there doesn't seem to be much idea of rebirth in these old texts. Then slowly, around the 8th, 7th century BCE, sometime before the Buddha, we begin to see inklings of the idea of rebirth, sometimes in ways that we wouldn't understand today. So for example, initially there's the idea that upon death, that the soul goes into heaven, and then it gets, it comes back down to earth with the rains, it gets eaten by animals, and then as the products of these animals are eaten, the soul gets reborn. But eventually we find something very much like the notion of rebirth that we find in Buddhism and in other Indian religions. Now, that notion, I think, comes to be explained in very detailed way in religions, not only like Buddhism, but also in other religions like Jainism, and eventually by all forms of Indian religion. And they explain why we are reborn, and this mostly has to do with the theory of karma. They explain the mechanism of rebirth, that is the stages of death, the notion of the intermediate state, and then the process of rebirth itself. And most important, perhaps, these religions explain the process for stopping involuntary rebirth. So this gives us a kind of very brief idea of the history of the notion of rebirth. Now, even in India was itself a very heterogeneous society. There were many different points of view, and not even once the doctrine of rebirth had taken hold, not everyone bought into it. So there were skeptics even in India. There were some schools that were known as materialists, for example, who actually rejected the notion of rebirth. And it was in response to this that you have Indian thinkers, some of them very important Buddhist thinkers, that attempted to give proofs for rebirth. And it seems to me that those proofs can be roughly divided into two kinds: proofs based on reasoning and proofs based on experience. So the proofs based on reasoning are found in texts like the text of Dharmakirti, where he sets out he's really responding to people like the Indian materialists who do not believe in rebirth, and he tries to give good reasons for why we should accept that there is such a thing as rebirth. And those arguments have to do with the nature of consciousness, the fact that the nature of consciousness is different from the nature of matter, and that like causes must give rise to like effects, and that at the time of death, unless there's something to stop consciousness from taking rebirth, that naturally consciousness has to go on, it has to give rise to a like effect, hence there must be some rebirth. But there are also empirical proofs. Now in India, actually, I think we don't find many instances of people giving empirical proofs for rebirth. That is, at least in the ancient texts, we don't find many accounts of people saying, I had such an experience, I remembered my past life, or I realized that such a person was the reincarnation of someone else. In India, we don't find many instances of this. I've often asked myself why we don't find this. On the one hand, it's because scholars did not write very much about their own lives or their own experiences. We don't have many biographies of Indian saints that were written in India by Indian scholars. But there's a famous line in a work by the historian of the Kadampa school called Lechen Kunga Gyaltsen that recounts a story of when Atisha came to Tibet in the 11th century. Some of his disciples asked him whether he would write down his experience, his own experiences of his past lives, of his future life, and even of his enlightenment. And Atisha refused to do so. And he said that the reason was because these were kind of private matters that should not be revealed publicly. So on the one hand, we don't have many accounts of such experiences in India, I think, because there's not much tradition of writing biography in India. But on the other hand, I think there's a kind of reluctance to speak about this because it's considered something of a private matter. In Tibet, on the other hand, we have many accounts of people remembering their previous lives and also identifying the previous lives of others. So, for example, in a work of the third Karmapa who's writing about the first Karmapa, he gives an example of the first Karmapa being asked where a certain individual had been reborn. And the first Karmapa says that he's reborn in a very far-off area of Tsang. And later on, the disciples of the first Karmapa go there and in fact find a boy that had been reborn into a specific family, just as had been described by their teacher. So there are many examples of this in Tibet, and this we might consider to be examples of empirical proofs for the existence of rebirth. And I will end on this fact. Today in the United States, Buddhists account for less than 1% of the population. But something like 25% of all Americans, not only North Americans, but in fact in Western Europe as well, believe in rebirth or reincarnation. So the number is much more vast than the number of people who are Buddhists or who are adherents to the traditions of Indian religions. But that still leaves 75% of people who do not believe this. So especially on an occasion like this, when you have a graduating class that is about to enter the world, I think it's incumbent upon people to think a little bit about how one will take the knowledge of Buddhism that one has and be able to share it in a manner that doesn't presume that everyone is going to have the same beliefs that you do. So in this regard, I think His Holiness has been a model of a public intellectual who is able to go beyond the religious beliefs of his own religion to be able to reach out to broad audiences. So on this note, I'll end and allow His Holiness to speak.
You mentioned Judaism and also some Islam.
Islam, yes.
So rebirth, that means you see the future, next life, not previous life.
Maybe
This
the future
very
life.
created
Right.
by God.
Right.
So no previous life.
I think that's true. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So then, of course, you see, after death, you see, we simply waiting final judgment in the coffin. At least, you see, perhaps I think few centuries rest. So there's some kind of a concept, at least a future life. At the time of death is completely sort of stopped, not that way. I think that's many, I think, because of the believer. Oh, sorry. I discussed this. I inquired, out of my own curiosity, the Shintoism, the Japanese Shintoism, and also I think Chinese. They very much sort of also a strong tradition to worship their ancestors' soul or something. So they consider that is something natural. After death, there's some kind of things still remain. And then according to Shinto, then after death, we release all these pains and the suffering. So whether you should make attempt or not, after death, we reach some kind of nirvana. So that's very easy, very good. Without any effort, it's simply wait to death. And then we go to that kind of state. As your own, your explanation on the basis of your own sort of experience, quite sort of amazing. Now I think overall, I always consider the scientific research work is something quite a reliable sort of method. At the same time, we must accept certain phenomena which beyond our capacity through investigation. Therefore, it's a Buddhist concept, 통학문율, 중세고유, 신도고유.
So, because of this, in Buddhist philosophy,
그래서 커미션 다시래 열사. 그래서 가셔미.
because of this, in Buddhist philosophy, we find distinctions made within the category of phenomena as phenomena which belong to Buddhist thought. Yeah. For example, we speak of evident phenomena which lend themselves to experience and observation. Then you have the hidden phenomena which can be inferred on the basis of observed phenomena. And then there's the third category of phenomena referred to as extremely hidden.
So science, I think mainly, their research mainly on the first level,
category.
First category. Then, on the basis of their finding, then some sort of the chabachaji.
So then, of course, based on observation, they can also draw inferences. So then it touches upon the second category of phenomena as well.
The third level, only through someone who actually experienced. Now, for example, his own sort of experience, for him is something reality, real. But those people who never sort of experienced that, it still, his mind a little bit sort of different. It's possible like that. So that's the
So when we touch upon the third category of phenomena, which is really extremely hidden and obscure, then for the time being, for the other people, there is no real access, direct or inferential. So the only method that is left is to really rely on the testimony of the first person experience of the person himself or herself.
And for that also, you see, we must investigate. Through investigation, we must get sure that person is truly reliable, and his experience is something, not just illusion of these things. Now, through then thorough investigation, that person is reliable, never telling lie, and in this particular case, there is no reason to tell lie. Therefore, you see, get it successful. Go 이 chanchochita.
So then one can take the testimony to be credible.
So this point is, Chenrikwe Zani Ni Mutuyaki Desenshik. That the manual member never member the church.
So the point I'm trying to make is that with respect to science and its scope for knowledge and discovering knowledge, we need to make a distinction about the fact that there might be certain types of phenomena which science, it's beyond the scope of scientific inquiry. Therefore, we should not confuse between something that the science hasn't found or proven and something that science has proven to be not to be the case, the opposite. So these are two different things.
Among the scientists, as far as I notice, the later part of 20th century, is in their, the knowledge or field they carry or research about the brain. Quite sort of the more deeper level, this is still more mysterious things. And then also the medical science, medical science. Also now they realize mental state is very, very important factor for our physical health. So therefore, the scientists now brought the more attention about what's emotion, how to deal with this emotion. Through only surgery or through drug? No. Whether there's another way to deal with this sort of the problem, emotional problem, these things, problem or certain emotions like that. So last about 30 years, I had sort of serious sort of dialogue or discussion with scientists. Result, now, last 30 years, among the scientists, I think interest about information about emotion, which mentioned in now so far mainly Buddhist literature, their interest very much sort of increased. And actually, some scientists, last I think a few years, they actually carry some experiment through training. They found concrete sort of the result. So I think you mentioned, I think that maybe is relevant here. My friend, one scientist, he publicly sort of mentioned he is not Buddhist, but he believes rebirth. So the interest, you see, so therefore, you see, the last 30 years, we Buddhists, although in literature mentioned about particles, but see, in this field, it is extremely useful to learn from scientific sort of findings. Extremely sort of helpful, very helpful. So now, our sort of combination, the traditional or let's say traditional sort of knowledge about our mind, emotion, and that I usually call science of mind, not considered as a part of Buddhism. Buddhism is for individual matter. Now, knowledge or science of mind is universal. So, then also in some extent, Buddhist concept, the gap, the reality and appearances. many of our mistake, you see, develop because of we very much based on appearances without knowing the reality. So the gap, reality and appearances always source of problem. So therefore, it is in order to develop realistic approach, we must know the reality. So firstly, we must accept there is gap. I think every field. So such things, I think truth, concept of truth, very relevant now here. So these, again, Buddhist certain concept, and then momentarily changing, impermanent. That also, you see, the sources of these concepts is from Buddhist literature, but not necessarily consider these topics are Buddhist sort of practice. So, last a few years, I suggested, now out of 300 volumes, Genjur and Tenjur, Tenjur Ibe, Nisha. So, about 300 volumes. Usually, you see, we Tibetan also, you see, we consider these are something sacred sort of text and worship. Never feel, of course, the common people never feel these are text for study. That's now must change. I always telling, these 300 volumes is actually text, not just as an object for worship. Just if you touch our head. So that's, I think, clear sign of backwardness, reading. So the 300 volumes, Genjur about 100 volumes, and the Tenjur, that means commentary about Buddha's teaching, wrote by Nagarjuna and so on. These are great scholars. These are about 200 volumes. So the content, these 300 volumes, we can divide 3 parts. One part, science, about matters, about minds, emotions, these things. It's simply, when this text is mentioned about mind or emotions, no mention good emotion or bad emotion, simply what's the reality it mentioned. So it is science. The second category, on the basis of their on the basis of the reality, then is a certain sort of concept. That means the
the second part is really based upon the discoveries of the first part, which is the kind of the equivalence of science, then kind of concepts which are in some sense kind of developed on the basis of that understanding of reality.
That's Buddhist philosophy or Buddhist concept. And certainly, like Four Noble Truths, then these then related with Buddhist religion, about concept of nirvana or salvation, these things. That's more close to Buddhist religion. But simply, you see, the impermanence and these two truths. I think we can consider these are something, a philosophical view or concept about reality, like that. So why you see, I try to make distinctions in these 3 categories. The Buddhism religion part is only for Buddhists. The other 2, something very useful for our knowledge. Therefore, that should consider as an academic subject. Clear. So last now, I think 2 years to 3 years, we already now categorize these three parts. Now, firstly, we made compile in Tibetan, then in translation in English, then Chinese, then Hindi, like that. No Spanish. So later, like you have some sort of responsibility to translate into Spanish. So, so now, another sort of the reason why is I sort of thinking seriously these things is ultimate source of problem. Individual sort of unhappy, sort of disturbed mind, and problem within the family, problem within the society, and ultimately problem among humanity, global level. Ultimately, these problems start from here. No one deliberately tried to create a problem, but ignorance. We become slave of destructive emotion. Usually, we consider this destructive emotion is part of our mind. It is quite natural. Due to lack of knowledge, realize some emotions are destructive. And there is, among the sort of emotion, there's always two categories. One emotion, like anger, and the sort of counter, opposite force, always there. There's loving kindness. So once we realize, once we know within the emotion, contradictory emotions, then in order to reduce destructive emotions such as anger, try to find the opposite sort of emotion, then pay more attention about that, the strength, gain strength about this positive emotion, positive such as loving kindness, then automatically the anger, hatred, the intensity reduce. So whether we can eliminate these negative emotions, that is something related with religions. But this is not related with not relevant in general public. But general public, you see, we can, through training our mind, we can reduce these emotions which disturb our life. So in order to do that, we should, we must have some knowledge about what I usually call map of emotion, map of mind. Then you see better sort of knowledge, the system of this emotion. Then much easier to deal with this destructive emotion. So we are trying, you see, to produce
Textbooks.
Or textbook about these things as an academic subject, and eventually can be used in secular education field from kindergarten up to university level. Here is some modern scientist like Paul Ekman. You see his own sort of research. You see he identified, I think, 14 or 16 different emotion.
Different classes of emotions.
So we can add these things. Then some other sources, if something useful, we can add like that. So that we are doing. So perhaps I think this this institution, I think can carry some research work, and also I think to part of our kuduchasa.
Participate in this dialogue process.
And Cardo. What else? So now about mind, I think you briefly mentioned. Firstly, any phenomena which sort of obvious changing there, or there must be a nature of changing momentarily. Some change within a year, that change must take place every month. Change within month must take place every day. The change within day must, the momentarily must changing, so say, within hours or minutes or second. So sort of Buddhist logician used to conclude any phenomena which depend on causes must be momentarily changing. Then another thing, this impermanence. Now another thing, phenomena sometimes happen, sometimes disappear. That means even on the 지대거부 되겐기 가사 효측 루드에 김정아 시기와 채도 왔어. 수상 이 집어보 요래서. 정도 맞죠. 체제리 자산가 그거 요래서. 다디 경제 등의 차네 경제도 그 요인데 가서 그게 다도 당연시人民도 ren가를 했어. ren가 인도산에 코 주야디 gen시로 뛰기도 왔어.
His Holiness is referring to the classical debates between the theists of the Indian tradition on the one side and non-theists such as the Buddhist tradition on the other, on the question of the understanding the origination of the universe and phenomena. So one of the main premises that is put forward by the theist side is that the world is finite, therefore there must be a creator. And the Buddhist argument is that the world comes into being at a time and then disappears out of existence. So it's never eternal, and because of that, it indicates being subject to condition. There must be a cause or a condition.
Now among the phenomena, the same nature momentarily changing. One, matters. One, consciousness. Mental consciousness. Of course, I usually is mentioning, of course, maybe a little bit silly. I think one deeper, I think the Ningji 기에서 the level the could the monroshik to. 지금 감 콩도세 감라기 제베 그둘레 디 콜로디 구조제가 그랬어. 닝지 수심 기베 그둘레 사지 다가라는 구조제가 있어.
The neuroscientists tell us that when someone experiences compassion, the motor regions of the brain also becomes active. But these motor regions also become active when you have strong emotions like anger as well.
When I heard that, so I just expressed, then that part of our brain is so foolish. Mental level, big difference. Compassion is really full of strength, confidence. You see, think more concerned about their other sort of well-being. So unless you have some kind of self-confidence and willpower, you cannot think that way. Then anger, sadness is simply centered in the self-centered attitude. So there, usually anger comes when you feel some threat. That means you feel weak. So anger comes as indifferent. So the mental level, big differences. Compassion, full of strength. Anger, weak. But the brain didn't make distinction. One. Then, a little bit so silly, I usually telling people or expressing. When we get some very, very sort of sad sort of experience, tear come, isn't it? And when we are overjoyous, also sometimes tear come. And laughing, also is tear come. If you see our sort of nerve system is quite clever, and then they cause emotional level too much sort of joyfulness, then tear must come right eye. Sadness, then tear come from here. Then that shows us some sort of ability to make distinction. So the physical reaction is a certain sort of emotion. It seems to be very rough, very rough. So the explanation or find out the nature of consciousness based on neuron or brain, that the 차원적이 다 가서 그래 추십체가 그들라 라가지가 자우선 가고 있어요.
So what this suggests is that trying to really kind of formulate a comprehensive explanation of the nature of consciousness, which is a very subtle phenomena by definition.
Very sophisticated.
On the basis of a material basis like brain, on the basis of neurons, which is much grosser phenomena, that there is a very it's problematic.
There are also many years ago, you see one occasion to some sort of our meeting, the human sort of behavior or human mind, in order to know these things, test animal. I think big differences, even brain level, big differences. So very difficult, try to understand about the human mental sort of activities on the studying on the animal brain. I think very difficult. So now, and then sort of another sort of level. Those momentarily changing must be cause. Cause, two kinds. One, substantial cause. One, cooperative cause. Now, for example, the eye consciousness, the cooperative cause, eye organs on these, and also I think including some the brain activities. So, but the substantial cause, eye consciousness, such as the because of the cognitive,
So it's the quality of awareness itself, yeah, which gives rise to this cognitive capacity.
That must be is previous sort of continuation. Like you say, because of the
Material things like. For example, just in the case of creating a clay pot, the substantial cause, the material cause of that clay pot is the clay from which it's made, the stuff from which it is made.
The cooperative cause, some instrument, some human effort, all these things
Involved.
But substantial cause must be a cause which same nature, so that
So the substantial cause refers to the cause that actually turns into the effect, which is the stuff that is the effect is made from.
So consciousness, it is the substantial cause must be same nature consciousness. So at the time of conception, the consciousness must be must come from previous consciousness. Of course, then you see obviously different body, different basis, more subtle way. And then consciousness also, you see, the very grosser level, like eye consciousness, very grosser level. Awakened state, consciousness, very sort of grosser. Very grosser. And then dream state, another level, deeper level. Then deep sleep, another level. As you mentioned, coma survey, fainted, coma, another deeper level. Then deepest at the time of death. So now last, I think 5 decades, we notice in India at least, I think 30 cases, as we know, after death. Clinically, death. Heart beating stop, blood circulation, brain stop. So brain dead. So clinically dead. But body remain fresh. Next, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4, 5 weeks, it happened. So there must be cause. We cannot say some blessing, due to blessing, these things happen. No. This is nature. So must be some explanation. So that we now, you see, we believe the innermost subtle consciousness still within the body. All grosser level of consciousness stop, but very subtle consciousness still there. So some people, even that state, come back, then under the tendency. The innermost subtle thing,
So those who remain in that state, even within that stage, there might be different degrees of subtlety. Which we would call clear light state.
So, yeah, forget now. So there are many different levels of consciousness or mind. So now here I want to share with you through training. Some my friend, I think last 30, 40 years of training. So they can sort of concentrate, they can state certain deeper level of consciousness, 3 hours, 4 hours. Some cases, even breathing, because of that, weaken.
Become very faint.
Or sometimes stop. So these are sort of actually
These are actual experiences of people. Yeah.
So unless we accept consciousness or continuation of consciousness, you see many mysterious things we cannot sort of explain. So 2 phenomena, external phenomena and internal phenomena, that's consciousness. Consciousness, it's like matter is a grosser level, subtle level, very subtle level. Similarly, consciousness also grosser level, more subtle, very, very subtle level. Or then recently I also used to ask one, and previously also I asked, the pame kuja kyamebani dubayina ningsanche kyogrebestu kyogorsto.
I ask scientists that, for example, if the egg becomes fertilized, does that necessarily lead to a full birth? And I was told that's not the case.
Then, what is the cause? The only material, alone material, then blood and the semen without sort of any sort of damage also. And then meat must take place, the birth. That's not necessary, not 100%. So then, third factor must be there. What's that now? So we call the being who take birth here. So now that what was that being? Now you both mentioned you mentioned soul, right? Buddhists do not accept soul. the self merely designated on the continuation of mind, consciousness. Besides consciousness, no independent soul, no independent self. So, except only Buddhism do not accept, you see, certain self or soul, something
something that is independent of the physical, something that is independent of the physical and the mental properties of the being.
All traditions accept that, particularly Hindu, because you see, they accept the rebirth from previous life to this life, from this life, next life. So body and consciousness which related with this body cease. So there must be something. That's Atma, soul, permanent soul. But Buddhists say no. Simply designated on the combination of subtle body, subtle mind. So as like as mind, body also, grosser level of body, subtle level, very, very subtle level. Very, very subtle level, the body is simply energy. Energy, the subtle mind, always together. Like that?
Beings remain, so that may your holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso, abide to dispel the misery of the world.
Thank you. So usually, these days, I sort of expressing all the
Get as close as possible.
monasteries or Buddhist monastery in Ladakh and all these area should try to become learning center. So eventually, people heard monastery should get the sort of feeling, oh, this is a learning center. Like Nalanda. When we heard Nalanda, immediately we feel that's academic center. Not carrying puja day and night and with some kind of big bowl.
Big bowl, like a
And,
big drinking bowl.
and Tibetan tea, or I think Indian tea, and get some money like that. That I think should change. So all these, actually, as I mentioned earlier, the 300 volumes, these are text. So these monasteries should be learning center where these texts teach. So now here you already start using this material, but actually, because of Medjugorje College, the Duji Medjugorje, the Garden Tower, kind. Oh, I see. Oh, some mysterious things now here. Oh, this way. Finished. I think like this. Some Tola want come here. Oh. Come here. I stand here and take one picture. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. See you again.
Is he still here? Did he go?
He's gone out there. He's going to come back through here to go out the back door.
Oh, he's going to go back through the temple. He's going to go
Through
back.
the temple out that door.
Okay.
So he's going out there. He's going to come back through.
Okay. Teşekkürler. So apparently, His Holiness is going to be coming back through in a minute. He's outside, right? He's going to be coming back through, and then after that, then we'll proceed with the graduation. Yeah, you can sit. Yep, but you should, right. People should just take their seats, and when after His Holiness comes through, then we'll proceed.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to have, I was told, a 5-minute break, and then we will come back and do graduation formally.
Right.
So we really need somebody who's directing this. Do you know what's happening with everything?
I think I'm going to be kind of.
Okay, good. And I don't know that I want to do anything. It's kind of moot to. I mean, I'll say something very short. Right.
I think I saw you on TV.
Like talk about. Yeah, that was Yeah, if you could take just a couple sentences about it.
Go ahead. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. I'll mention a little more for the conclusion. There's a little more to the story I was saving for the very end. So I get to, well, there will. I get to talk at the very end of the graduation. So. Well, it's such a wonderful honor to be here. It's a real treat. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's all about awakening. So, yeah. Well, I think it's all about convergence, science, spirituality, kind of knowing of consciousness, the oneness. I mean, this is all coming together now for a reason. So, yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. Good. Did you come down just today, or have you been here? Were you here
No, I
yesterday?
just arrived late last night. On the East Coast. Switched the ticket. Was able to come here. I don't know how much I'll be able to attend that.
So I got your advertisement for the summer program.
Well, thank you. It's a real honor to be here. A real honor. So I'm just very pleased to be able to offer anything that helps.
Yeah, it'd be nice to do it. Because right now I'm a partner in chair, so but this is my last year.
Your last year's department
Yes,
chair.
partner chair.
Okay. You're not retired.
I'm not retiring,
Okay.
but I'm retiring from that aspect of the job. Things will get easier for me.
And
Have you been teaching on the East Coast? Have you been doing-
yeah, I was at 2007.
Which is where?
North Carolina. Yeah, it's at the PMT Center in Raleigh. Very nice. Just feel like there is a
No, I didn't.
Probably on the internet.
It's the first thing to check. Oop, thank you.
very similar. The link for your conference on the papers. Yeah. So we weren't able to see all of your presentations. If you have your paper or any of the other papers from that,
It's going to be published.
good.
They're editing the papers, and they're going to even solicit some other papers. And it's going to be published. Wisdom is going to be published.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an important topic.
guess there were problems with the audio or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, we were. We couldn't. Well, we didn't even know about them.
Oh, I
We didn't get email until the second. But we heard that there was a problem with the audio. Also, the user listening.
But I think they're moving fairly quickly, so it shouldn't be too long before the line.
I heard it just many years ago. Some guy did his PhD interviewing a number of different teachers, writing up about their life. And I think it was Raymond or something.
I also heard something like that. That's a really good idea. Figure out his name or when he did the PhD or
Well, I read it in the early 80s.
a long time ago.
Right?
So, yeah, it was like late 70s, very early 80s.
Yep.
Alexandra, I had a very, rough experience with my life too. Thank you for
Really? Thank you very much.
You don't remember what university it was?
How's it going? What'd you get there?
Hey.
Are you still on?
Cut it. I'll turn it off.
I got some pictures.
You got what?
I got pictures.
Good. Excellent.
I got one at the end when you were standing.
Western
with
people.
That's
Yeah.
That was the best one.
At least one, Elijah.
I
Oh.
was sending them to a couple people, not Marla. I don't trust
No,
her.
no, no. I wouldn't trust her.
It was
She'll
not
be.
just Western people, there was
Oh yeah. Very. Oh.
They are the same one. What? No, there
It's
was
got to be
another
there.
one.
I know. I saw the other one. It's there. Yeah, I saw it.
Okay, so let me get out. There's you.
Uh-huh. That one. That's good.
That's a good one.
Yeah, you want to send that to me?
I will.
Thank you.
And then,
That's very good.
that's you.
Yeah.
And there's him.
Yeah.
I took a whole bunch.
Very
There's you.
good.
That's him, out of focus. And then there's you and him in the same. That's when you
Uh-huh.
were talking and he was listening to
Oh
you.
yeah.
That's him
Okay.
listening to you. That's you talking.
Good.
Did you see where I was before? This
Yeah.
is the empty room.
I did. It took me a while to find it though.
This is the empty room.
It took me a while to
It's a
find
pretty
you.
cool room, isn't it?
It is. It's very nice.
When did you find me? While you were still talking, or not at the end?
Towards the end.
I think I caught your eye. Yeah, you didn't see me.
Yeah.
But I
Very
can
good.
see you. You know what?
What?
There's 2 Alexander guest chairs.
Really?
Yeah, so there's an empty one next to me. The only empty one in the place.
I'll have to tell Phyllis.
That's exactly what Terry did.
There'll be 2 guests.
There'll be 2 guests. She held that possibility. She's not a very good manifestor, is she?
No. She manifested the chair.
I think she thought she had been sitting in this.
Did you see I get to make the closing statement at graduation?
Now, they just asked you yesterday if you were going to stay.
Yeah.
And yet, this was
It's a good thing I'm
printed ahead
staying.
of time.
Yeah, good thing I'm staying.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Those chairs are highly
It's kind of like we used to do in skydiving in the plane. You didn't want people too comfortable in the airplane.
yeah, on my butt. Not so
Well.
much the position. Oh, looks like it's
Yeah, we're going to start. I will see you shortly. Okay?
go back to my chair.
Pick the chair.
Yes.
I will be seeing you in Santa Barbara in July.
Very good.
Ions.
Huh?
Ions.
No,
The sen-
Okay, maybe at the end of the...
right, I think, I think there is a, okay. Thank you very much. Well, I look forward to that. Good to see you.
I wish the conversation.
Right. Yeah, it would be nice to have a little more time. But we'll cover more in Santa Barbara.
Yes.
There'll be plenty of time there to talk. Oh, good. Excellent. Very good. Well, that is wonderful. Okay, well, thank you, and we'll look forward to seeing you, okay?
If everybody could take... If everybody could take their seats, we're going to begin the graduation ceremony. Okay, well, welcome back, everybody. That was pretty incredible. Okay, so we're going to begin together reciting. In the program, it says Bodhisattva Aspirational Verses. And unfortunately, Lama Zopa Rinpoche was unable to attend, so we're going to just recite it together. So, for as long as space endures, and for as long as sentient beings remain, so then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, and Professor Kabizan, who's the 14th Dalai Lama Chair in Tibetan Buddhist Studies at UC Santa Barbara, is going to say just a few words about Buddhist studies in the West.
If I use this mic, can you hear me, or is it better if I use this one? Maybe better, yeah? Yeah. So this whole conference is a little bit of a hard act to follow. But it occurs to me that really this is the future of Buddhism in the West, right? I mean, the institutions like Maitripa Institute and the inroads that it's making into bringing Buddhist practice into the daily lives of so many people, and especially, you know, I mean, what I've always found so profound about the vision of Maitripa is this idea of integrating three things together. The study, on the one hand, the importance of study, and His Holiness made reference to this in his remarks today, that the scriptures, and in fact, when His Holiness was leaving, he looked at the tag of one of the scriptures, which I took to be symbolic of the fact that it's not enough, and he said so explicitly, it's not enough simply to have these as objects of worship, but that it's really necessary to engage in the study of the great textual traditions of India and Tibet. And this is very much a part of the curriculum at Maitripa. So that's the first part, the leg of study. And then there's a leg of meditation. So simply studying these things and gaining intellectual knowledge is not sufficient. They have to somehow be integrated into one's daily life. And the way to do this is through meditation. So this is the second aspect, the aspect of practice or meditation. And the third really comes out of the Mahayana or Bodhisattva ideal that is the heritage of the Tibetan tradition, and that's doing this, always being motivated by wanting to be of benefit to others, to work for the welfare of others. So when these three things are integrated, study, meditation, and working for the welfare of others, then you have, it seems to me, a complete education. So the graduates who are finishing this year, I think, can be assured of the fact that they come from a long tradition in which this has been practiced, and beginning with the great monasteries of India to the great monasteries of Tibet, and now being found in Buddhist universities like this one in the United States. So my congratulations to the graduates of this year, and my continued prayers for the welfare of Maitripa and its great vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. Okay, so we're going to move on to the presentation of diplomas, and that will be with Jose and myself. I'm Jim Blumenthal. I'm one of the professors here at Maitripa, and also Jennifer Diallo, who's the director of the Oregon Office of Degree Authorization, who you met earlier as well. So Jennifer is going to read the names. I will read a few comments about them, about each individual, from their students. And then Jose will give them their diplomas, which are forthcoming.
Yes.
Okay.
Shall we?
I guess we will symbolically hand out degrees. Oh, they're coming. Oh. Okay.
Okay. For the Diploma of Master of Arts in Buddhist Studies, Michael Yum.
Okay. So, Michael is described by his fellow students in the following way. So Michael's classmates said Michael is always up and ready to go at the crack of noon. I will say in his defense, earlier this week I asked if he would come to my house at 8:15 to go pick up a U-Haul to help bring furniture over to the first event. And he didn't even tell me that that was 4 hours before he normally woke up. However, he'll always sacrifice sleep or mealtime for Dharma activities, even hiking up Mount Hood with Rinpoche on only 3 hours of sleep. Michael's very inquisitive with a strong curiosity and eagerness to question, and is certainly not afraid to cut to the chase in classroom discussions and debates. Outside class, his sense of humor brightens our day, and he's always ready to offer you a smile, words of gratitude, or a pat on the back. And he was also willing to step up to a very difficult challenge for his master's thesis of translating a 15th century philosophical text, which is forthcoming. Right now it's in the visualization, but anyway, congratulations, Michael.
For the Master of Arts in Buddhist Studies, Manju Magar.
Manju is described. Manju cheerfully calls hello, dear, when she sees you, and always has a huge smile and welcoming, warm hug. And this is really true. If there was any counter-argument to impermanence, it would be her permanent smile on her face. She extends this warmth and welcoming, inviting attitude to everyone who comes into Maitripa. Her classmates also concur that their Didi, or sister in Nepali, is an expert in Bollywood movies and making chutney. Thank you.
For the Master of Arts in Buddhist Studies, Michael Sobel.
Michael's classmates like his really cool rabbit named Fred, and one of them who bumped into Mike at the gym remarked, "He's surprisingly buff," quote unquote. Michael is adventurous yet kind, gentle, and calmly subdued. His classmates appreciate his excellent questions in class, which help others understand more deeply. Michael is very devoted to work, teaching young people from his heart with obvious enthusiasm, and shows a genuine interest in others, and he was also part of some of the furniture moving crew this week, and was just willing to help with the preparations for His Holiness at any time, in any way. He was always there. Thank you.
For the Diploma of Master of Divinity, Paula Dovoluk.
Paula's classmates reflected that even though she might bellyache now and then, she's an inspiration to others. She hasn't given up diligence in practice and study for many, many years. We never stop learning new things about Paula. Did you know that she's a hardcore whitewater rafter, for example? I didn't. We always appreciate her conversations about her time in Asia. She spent quite a bit of time in Asia. Hospice work, and she has a deep and contagious laugh. She gives lovely comments, is so kind, caring, grounded, and insightful. And another said, Paula's my Maitripa sister.
For the Master of Divinity, Elena Goodrich.
It'd be hard to imagine a student with more enthusiasm than Elena. In many ways, she really embodies the real spirit of Maitripa in so many ways. She embodies joyful effort with a sweet and caring attitude and is ready to help others with a smile or to take on the tough tasks even when they aren't asked of her. She has a very pleasant, quote, radio voice and often suspiciously cheerful. Elena also maintains a somewhat secret and powerful level of karate skills, and I believe she's taking her black belt exam this summer. But of course, she only will unleash them out of compassion.
For the Master of Divinity, Deborah Anu Savel.
Deborah has been a genuine student and friend of Maitripa. I would also add she's incredibly dedicated. She's been commuting from Eugene twice a week for 3 years now in effort for this degree. She's ready with insightful questions and has brought support and camaraderie during her time at Maitripa. She keeps a simple, adorable picture of her boyfriend on her computer. Quite possibly. Now we all know. She's quite possibly the most prolific Maitripa College online community poster. Deborah has what some might consider an extra slow pace in walking meditation, perhaps from her years of serious training in the Zen tradition. But we'll probably admit that it's just because she's better at walking meditation than us. And is compassionately teaching us patience. She's brought with her into the classes life experience from being a mom and valuable perspectives from all her time studying and practicing at the Zendo. Thank you. And those, along with His Holiness, who I'm not sure if you noticed, Rinpoche just at the end gave His Holiness an honorary degree, so they're all graduates in the year 2013 class with His Holiness the Dalai Lama here. So the graduates can all turn their tassels from the right to the left side. And so we thought the students would like to say a few words as well. So the first student speaker will be Michael Yum. Come on up. Okay.
I'm just going to take it in for a minute. All right. Hello, everyone. It's great to be with you on such an auspicious, during such an auspicious week. It's a real honor and joy to be with you here this morning. It's especially meaningful this morning as myself and my fellow graduates reflect on our time as students of Maitripa College and upon what it means to be graduating from such a unique institution. I'm speaking on behalf of my fellow MA graduates, Mike Sobel and Manju Tapamagar. Manju asked me to express her gratitude at being able to receive these precious teachings on Buddhism, an opportunity to deepen her understanding that she might not have been able to receive in her native home of Nepal, which is a very beautiful country and one of the holiest places on earth, according to some magazines. Anyway, Mike also asked me to express his gratitude and his thanks to all of the teachers and staff at MyTripa that made this day possible. I'd like to begin my own short address with a passage from Lewis Carroll, the author of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Alice laughed. "There's no use trying," she said. "One can't believe impossible things." "I dare say you haven't had much practice," said the Queen. "When I was your age, I always did it for half an hour a day. Why, sometimes I've believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast." Much like Alice, I'm a pragmatic sort of person, and I too used to think that one simply cannot believe impossible things. And yet, at MyTripa College, it seems like we're asked to believe 6 different impossible things every day. Off the top of my head, the notion that it's possible to attain a renunciation lacking even a shred of admiration for all of the marvelous things there are in the world. The ability to cherish others to the extent that you would offer them the flesh from your own body. That it is possible to gain a total and permanent freedom from all of our numerous and petty sorts of suffering. That a person is not a solid, unsubstantial thing, but something merely designated in dependence upon the aggregates. That attaining a graduate degree from a Buddhist college is not a foolhardy endeavor. And ultimately, that it is possible to attain complete enlightenment and cognize in a single moment all objects of knowledge in the universe, emanate trillions of bodies in trillions of worlds for the benefit of trillions of sentient beings, and to do all of this spontaneously without even breaking a sweat. I could go on, but I think I've made my point. There's a certain mindset that comes with being a student at MyTripa College, a mindset that this building, the people here, the subjects we study, and our wonderfully precious teachers help to instill in us. What kind of mindset is it? It is a mind that recognizes that yes, the world is full of problems, and yes, the end goal at times seems impossibly distant, and yes, I am utterly and entirely riddled with flaws and afflictions, and yes, practicing the Dharma is always difficult, and yet, I can do this. I will do the impossible. We will change the world. It is an audacious, seemingly impossible goal. The sheer existence of MyTripa College is an audacious, seemingly impossible goal. But I think if we all look around us and take a good long look, then I hope we all leave here today and take that mindset with us and continue to think impossible things every single day. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here to celebrate this special moment with us. The 6 of us feel incredibly fortunate to be graduating during this exciting time. We would like to share a few minutes to rejoice together. At this occasion, we're of course celebrating our graduation from the amazing institution that is MyTripa College. Yet in truth, each and every one of us in this Jokong has innumerable reasons to rejoice, especially as we witness His Holiness the Dalai Lama's presence here in Portland. So I'd like to offer just a few words. To begin, rejoicing in the enlightenment of Buddha Shakyamuni, and rejoicing in the practice, scholarship, and realizations of Buddhist masters over the past 2,500 years. Rejoicing in His Holiness the Dalai Lama's immeasurable good qualities, and rejoicing in the skillful means by which he shares his simple, yet infinitely profound messages about wisdom and compassion with the world. Rejoicing in Lama Zopa Rinpoche's heartfelt determination to share Dharma with Western students, and rejoicing in all of the sentient beings who benefit as a result of his dedication and all of the work that is done under this roof. And rejoicing in Yangtze Rinpoche's great bodhicitta and in his wise leadership, and rejoicing in his decision to teach in the West and begin MyTripa College, which will empower so many to go out into the world and create positive change. Rejoicing in Maitripa's faculty and staff, in all of the time and energy that they offer with their pure hearts. Rejoicing in the students, the alums, and the entire Maitripa community who are all integral to making this college such a special and sacred place. And finally, as graduates, rejoicing in the many hours of hard work and dedication that we have invested in the pillars of scholarship, meditation, and service. Contained in this rejoicing is immense gratitude for all of the causes and conditions that have brought us here to this moment. We graduates would especially like to thank Yangtze Rinpoche and the entire faculty and staff of Maitripa College. Your extraordinary good qualities have shined extra bright during these past months' preparations for His Holiness's visit. And throughout our entire time here at Maitripa, we have witnessed how your love and support create this space for all of us. Our sincerest gratitude for everything that you do. So with this, I'd like to pass the microphone over to Mike Sobel. We have a few gifts that we'd like to bestow.
As an expression of our gratitude that Elena spoke so well about, we'd like to offer some gifts that will be offered symbolically here. Paula is offering a gift for His Holiness, in honor of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, to the Dalai Lama Trust for the welfare and well-being of the Tibetan people and the preservation of this tradition that we treasure so much. Manju will offer symbolically a gift to Lama Zopa Rinpoche to the Animal Liberation Fund to help free animals from suffering. For our respected teacher, Yangtze Rinpoche, Paula will offer symbolically a gift in honor of Rinpoche. We'd like to make a donation to a local organization, Friends of Trees. This is also, we feel like this is in the spirit of the environmental dialogue. And for our teachers and staff, we would like to invite everyone to have a dinner with us, the class of 2013. I'd like to turn the microphone over to Deborah for a dedication. Thank you.
Oh, goodness, this hat. As we rejoice, so must we dedicate. As we walk forward from this auspicious time, may we offer ourselves completely and generously to our calling in the world. As aspiring chaplains, may we dedicate our merit to relieving suffering in hospitals, prisons, and hospices. As seekers of knowledge, may we dedicate our merit to growing and deepening the practice of the Dharma through continued academic study. Whatever our next steps on the path may be, may we also dedicate the merit of our work at Maitripa College to the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, beacon of justice and hope. May we dedicate the merit of our work at Maitripa College to the long life of Venerable Lama Zopa Rinpoche, spiritual director of the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition. May we dedicate the spirit of our work at Maitripa College to the long life of Venerable Yangtze Rinpoche, founder and president of Maitripa College. We bow deeply to their embodiment of the great wish-fulfilling gem of compassion and to their dedication to the full enlightenment of all sentient beings. I'd like to close with an invocation from the Zen tradition. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, Mahaprajna Paramita. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to invite up Dr. Alexander to give some closing inspirational comments.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a true honor to be here. I can tell you since my journey of 4.5 years ago, deep in coma, I've had basically a vertical learning curve. And a lot of it has been just a miraculous gift. It became very clear to me as I started giving talks about my experience and was approached by spiritual leaders from all different traditions. I would hear about what seemed to be very much a convergence of thinking. And I came to realize that my journey, just personally, was very much one of taking old boundaries and knocking them down. And that includes boundaries between science, the science I had grown up with, the reductive materialist science that talk about impossible thinking, thinking that the material is all that there is. I mean, even Descartes, the premier dualist, would say if you had to pick one or the other, mind is the thing that's there. Consciousness is the thing that is truly there. And I came to realize that materialists were in a headlong rush to tell us there's no material to the material world. And that was a great and wonderful revelation. But the thing that does exist is our consciousness. And it's eternal. Lessons learned in this incarnation are not wasted at all. And all of this has been just a miraculous gift. And I must say that coming here and sharing in this beautiful ceremony of graduation, to me it points out a very clear juncture in the destiny of mankind, because I really had to step way back when my materialist paradigm was knocked over and look really at least a 3,000-year arc of human history and realize that 20th century of pure scientific materialism was a very necessary step. But that was kindergarten. And now it's time to move to the next level. And I think the graduates who have taken the time to learn what you have learned about consciousness and about eternity of soul and about our reason for being here, you're doing it at a very, very good time for this world. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, that concludes our graduation ceremony for 2013. Congratulations again to the 6 graduates here today. Thank you all for being here on this incredibly blessed day here at Maitripa College, and hopefully we'll see you all soon.
So that concludes the program, and I hope you'll all join us tomorrow at the Memorial Coliseum to see His Holiness again and again.
And also, don't forget on Sunday from 12 to 5, the Green Action Day. Pioneer Courthouse Square.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Diallo. I'm from the Office of Degree Authorization for the state of Oregon, and I'm joined here by Ben Cannon, the Governor's Education Policy Advisor. It is our honor and privilege to participate in the visit of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and to be the guests of Maitripa College, one of the fine examples of schools under authorization in Oregon. A degree is an academic credential that must be authorized by a government in order to be legal, in order to hold the value of a public credential. And the purpose of degree authorization is to ensure, around the world, in every country, is to ensure that certain standards of quality are met and that the holder of the degree has value for the holder of that degree and for those who the person represents themselves as a degree holder. And these standards throughout the history of higher education have been provided by governments around the world and allow one to cross state lines, to cross country lines by presenting a degree as this public credential. In the United States, we also have a system of accreditation which ensures the value and the quality of those degrees, and regional accreditation is the level that is recognized around the world as holding the highest value for a degree. In Oregon, we have a unique situation in that because we provide the opportunity for colleges to begin to offer degrees before they have regional accreditation by providing evaluation services. We have fine examples like Maitripa that are able to flourish and grow into regionally accredited institutions. And we are very proud to have a school of this high quality here. Thank you for the honor of being here today and participating with you in the commencement of your students and the welcome of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I'm very grateful.
So I think now we begin with